Hello and welcome to the Cartlands YouTube channel. This isn't the sort of video I would normally do. However, in light of the fact that tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning we will be covering the final tribunal hearing of Dr Cartland, I thought there was some benefit in clearing a few things up. There is understandably a lot of heated discussion going on online. There's a lot of, you could say, disinformation. There's a lot of misinformation. I'd say it's probably disinformation, but you know, right now there are demonstrably hundreds of thousands of people watching this case, some of whom have very interesting ideas about what this case is about. That may be intentional, it may not. I'm not saying either way. I have really no opinion about whether people are being intentionally misled, and I'm not expressing an opinion right here about that, okay? Now, just a bit of housekeeping. I think it's really important that I tell you, I'm not a legal professional. I'm not professing to be a legal professional. I'm not a solicitor or a barrister or anything like that. However, it is a large part of my academic qualifications. Master's level, I've studied media law, and actually, ironically, I covered the Alex Belfield case. It's something that I'm really interested in, and because of that, I've kind of been looking at what the misconceptions are regarding the MPTS versus Cartland case proceedings, and I've been making some notes. So this is just an attempt to clear up any misunderstandings. Understandably, Dr Cartland has been online and very, very vocal about his disapproval of how the case has been covered, by whom, and the things that have been said. I mean, sure, in all fairness, you can disapprove of what's been said, but if it's been said, it's been said. So that is, as journalists, that's all we can go on, really. What's been said, what's been proven, what's been disproven, blah, blah, blah. It is not up to us to decide what is true, other than what we have evidence regarding in terms of that was said, it's transcribed, we were there at the hearing, so, you know, we can say demonstrably it's true. And I hope this helps clear some things up. Over the last few days, misinformation about the case has been flooding social media, mainly, in fairness, from Dr Cartland and his supporters. So today, we're doing something very simple. We are going to compare those claims with the documented facts backed by the General Medical Council and the MPTS Tribunal Panel and public legal records. They are public legal records, okay? This isn't stuff that's being made up and with the knowledge that it can't be checked up on. These are public records, and if you wish to access them, I'm sure you can. So let's begin with something relatively minor, but quite revealing. So Dr Cartland took issue with Cornwall Live, claiming in a public spat with its editor, Jeff Rains, that he was never, quote, a former GP. And to be fair, if the article had said that, he would be right to complain. But there's a catch. It didn't say that. Now, Dr Cartland's followers are very upset that this was something that Cornwall Live would say that, but Dr Cartland's followers don't appear to actually be reading the article. So it didn't say that. He's not a former GP. It did say he was disgraced. And maybe you could argue that that's not been said by anybody, but I think actually if you were to go back through social media, you would probably find that a lot of people have used that term. That's not to say that it's okay that Cornwall Live did. It's just to say that they couldn't be accused. I don't believe they could be accused of being the first people or even publication to use that term. So I think it would be a stretch for Dr Cartland or Dr Cartland's defence to claim that that's libelous. He said, Dr Cartland said in that same tweet, I haven't been found guilty of anything. this is a big because where Dr. Cartland made that claim, unfortunately, I can legitimately say that's false. Now, you haven't been found, or rather, he hasn't been found guilty in a court of law. That's not what this is. This is about his fitness to practice, and in that respect, it's about his trustworthiness as a practitioner. Now, according to the public MPTS record, and I've been observing these hearings, all 17 allegations by the General Medical Council were found proved. This isn't a smear. It's not libelous. It is not fake news. This is a tribunal finding. This is official. Of all the allegations that were put to the GMC, they were all found to have substantive weight behind them. They were all found to be adequately evidenced to kind of, if you like, beyond a reasonable doubt. And unfortunately, I know I can say this because it's been cited, Dr. Cartland's own conduct online, unfortunately, has reinforced the allegations made. So it's not even as though he could say, oh, well, it's completely out of character, you won't find any other scenarios in which I've acted like this. By the way, it's there. And he has continued to behave in the ways that he's been accused of throughout the hearing, which is bizarre. I don't think, again, it's not libelous of me to say, it is very unusual for someone to continue to behave in the ways that they've been accused whilst going through such a serious process. But each to their own, and this is how Dr. Cartland wishes to conduct himself, and kind of have to respect that's his choice. But it makes it very difficult for him to argue anything that he's been accused of. But Dr. Cartland seems to have his followers absolutely convinced. He seems to continue to return to this assertion that he's being punished for his views. Now, funnily enough, his views have not been mentioned really at all. Yes, they've kind of come up in passing, but they have then, not one of the charges is about his views. So let's break this down. And it's certainly not about his right to free speech. It's very important. He's allowed to say whatever he wants, but obviously, depending what that is and about whom, that's the big issue here. Dr. Cartland famously had to issue an apology and a retraction regarding some allegations that he made about Dr. Ranj Singh. He issued that apology, a retraction, and then very soon after returned to exactly the same behaviour that had got him in trouble in the first place, which is why he is being pursued in other ways legally as well. But I'm not covering that. That's got nothing to do with me right now. So he was found to have harassed 3 doctors, who are only known as Dr. A, B and C, over social media platforms including X, formerly Twitter, Telegram, Instagram and Getter. He created a fake account in the name of Dr. C and used it to post abusive content. Now, depending on how convincing that account was and the image used, there's potentially actually a case, you're going to think this is ridiculous, but there is actually potentially a case for identity theft. In situations like that, it's not uncommon. He encouraged his followers to gather information on, contact, or harass those doctors. Now, this is something that I've seen for myself. It's actually a pretty standard thing for Dr. Cartland to have done over the past few years. I can't comment before that. Again, I'm not saying that Dr. Cartland is not a nice person. Okay? I am not saying that outside of social media he is not a really, really positive force for his family or friends, anything like that. But certainly how he has conducted himself on social media and how he has used that and weaponized it against not just other professionals, but other members of the public, the press, all sorts. It's not good. And yet he seems to keep citing laws that he seems to believe will work in his favour but not others, whilst doing the things that he's denying doing. I don't quite understand. Again, it's not my job to cast aspersions on Dr. Cartland or his character. I'm just telling you what is public record. He sent a threatening email to Dr. A. That email has been seen. It has been proven to have come from him. It's not a good email. And actually, it could potentially be a police matter, but we'll see. Repeatedly posted identifying details of a woman, Ms. A, who declined his job application, clearly intended to provoke online backlash. So, the story behind this is that Dr. Cartland applied for a job at a particular surgery. I don't know the exact ins and outs, but what I do know is that the response that he got was actually a civil response. My understanding then is that Dr. Cartland decided that he was being refused a job because of his views, and so he posted her identity, her work email, her private email on social media. Now that is doxing, and I don't care if you think this falls under freedom of speech. It doesn't. Okay. It also doesn't matter if those details are publicly available already. What matters is the intent behind sharing them. And you can go and check this up on the CPS. I'll put a link to that below. This is a law. Doxing is illegal. It is seen to be an act of intimidation. Intimidating people is illegal. Okay? And depending on the severity of either the intimidation or the outcome of the intimidation. So depending on how much damage is done by people taking those details and using them, actually doxing can come with a custodial sentence. It has been written into law for quite some time, and it's a serious offence. And you're very, very lucky that actually at the moment you're just in front of the MPTS and not in a courtroom defending your freedom, because it's a shit trick, to be honest. Again, I also understand that it was brought up in the tribunal by Dr. Cartland's defence, Mr. Diamond, that Dr. Cartland had been under a huge amount of stress, a huge amount of pressure, both worrying for his family, financially, and his reputation. So we all do stupid things. Okay, when we're under pressure, we do stupid things. However, there are limits as to what is seen as acceptable, and certainly creating accounts in other people's image to cause them reputational harm, possibly even physical harm, depending on what you posted. And also posting people's private details online, that falls out of the realm of legally forgivable. So it'd be interesting to see if this progresses, or how this progresses legally after the final hearing tomorrow. And this is a big one. This is so he offered to issue a fraudulent COVID-19 vaccine exemption certificate. Now, this is not about opinions. I think I'll come back to this in a moment, because I've seen a lot of accounts saying that this seems very suspicious. Why would somebody get in touch with him and then forward on, to make that specific inquiry and then forward the response on? I see where you're going with that. You want to call it entrapment, and I understand. We'll come back to it. He admitted that he would give one whether or not a person had a medical need, openly saying he'd record false information to honour, quote, bodily autonomy. Finally, he acted dishonestly and unethically according to the GMC standards. Now, that again is beyond question. The GMC set standards. As a medical professional, you're supposed to operate within those standards. There's really no doubt, just given the evidence, and there was 2,000 pages. This has not been a small case by any stretch of the imagination. The tribunal concluded that his behaviour amounted to misconduct and raised serious concerns about his fitness to practice. Now, rightly, Dr Cartland has pointed out that he is still practicing. He's not yet been struck off, and that is absolutely true. At the moment, as far as I can see, no papers, news outlets, no reporters, be them independent or otherwise, have said that he has been struck off. In fact, Dr Cartland himself has on many occasions talked about how he's still working. However, from tomorrow, we'll just have to see. There is, you could say remarkably, there is actually a possibility that he may still continue to practice with certain sanctions, but we don't know, couldn't possibly say. This is just about doing a bit of fact-checking. Cartland and his supporters are baffled, even outraged, that so many of the defence witness statements were deemed inadmissible. Some claim the tribunal didn't want to hear support for his views. But the real reason that those statements were dismissed is because they just weren't relevant. Dr Cartland, be it intentionally or not, has misled his own supporters about what he was actually being investigated for. Many of them thought or think that he's on trial for vaccine skepticism or for free speech, but he isn't. So they submitted glowing testimonies about his public stance, rather than about the actual misconduct. Now, that's not censorship, that's legal procedure. Evidence must relate directly to the allegations, and these didn't. So it's not about just ignoring character references, it's that those references were not relevant to the charges. Now, one of the more persistent claims that we've seen online is that Dr. Cartland was tricked into offering fake exemption certificate, and that somehow invalidates the charge. So, this is coming back to what I was talking about earlier. It brings us to a common misconception that entrapment is illegal in the UK, and it isn't. Not in the way that most people think, anyway. So the key case to reference here would be the Tulisa versus the fake shake sting, which I'm sure many of you will remember. The courts ruled that covert operations are only unfair if they induce someone to act in a way that they wouldn't normally. But Dr. Cartland didn't resist. He wasn't reluctant. In fact, based on the hearing evidence, he was reportedly enthusiastic about the idea, and that makes all the difference. You can't cry entrapment when the sting matches your public behaviour. It's not a setup if it confirms a pattern. So, effectively, in the case of Tulisa, she was pushed into doing something that she wouldn't normally have done, and then the fact that she was recorded doing that was used against her. That's why the case collapsed, because actually it was proven that she would never normally act in that way, and that the evidence was contrived. Okay? And that's where entrapment becomes an issue. In this case, it isn't, purely because of the attitude in the response from Dr. Cartland himself, where he was not only okay with it, he was actually quite eager to assist. So says the evidence. Anyway, now I'm not a lawyer. I've never claimed to be, but I studied media law at master's level. I'm now researching this area, investigating digital harassment and law enforcement failures in cases of online abuse. I can say with confidence that nothing you've heard in what I've said today is speculative or defamatory. It's drawn directly from official documents, public tribunal statements, and well-established UK law. You can check it for yourself. You don't have to listen to what you're being told. You can go and look, okay? Look at the CPS website. Look up the laws. Don't just take what's being told to you on social media. We have a duty, especially in journalism and public discourse in general, to be accurate, to be transparent, and grounded in fact. Okay? And that's really what this video is aimed to do. Tomorrow morning, we'll know the final outcome of the MPTS hearing. Will Dr Cartland be struck off, suspended, or allowed to continue practicing with conditions? I don't know. But what I do know is that I'm going to be in that hearing, and whatever happens, you'll hear it here first. It will be accurate. The quotes will be directly from the hearing. Nothing made up. It's facts, not fiction. Thanks for listening. I'm James Murray Hodcroft with the Hodlines. Please feel free to visit thehodlines.co.uk. It is not an online paper, it's really just a portfolio of some of my journalistic work. Share the stories, there are many more to come. I've got some that I'm working on over the next few weeks. And if there is anything that you feel that I'm wrong about in this video, please feel free to get in touch, but be nice, okay? You don't have to be horrible just because you disagree with me. Let's start acting civilly, all right? So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully you'll hear from me tomorrow morning. Take care.